As Democrats go after Mitch McConnell over those stimulus checks, Senator Chris Murphy is saying that Republicans will try every conceivable way to kill the larger checks. And Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut joins us now. Explain, what are you seeing in Mitch McConnell's strategy in not allowing a clean vote on the stimulus checks?
Well, it's important to note that the legislative session ends in 3 days. And so there is only one path to get $2,000 into the hands of Americans who are struggling today, and that is to pass the House legislation. 2/3 of the House voted in favor of this legislation. Lots of Republicans. It's hard to get 2/3 of the House of Representatives to agree on what time it is, and yet they came together to up these checks to $2,000. Donald Trump will sign the bill, and so the only thing stopping this from becoming law is Mitch McConnell and Senate Republicans who refuse to bring it up for a vote. Now, as you mentioned, he is attempting to say that he will pass a $2,000 check bill as long as we shove into that legislation massive internet reform to punish the internet companies for their attempts to hold Donald Trump to account on his lies, and this election fraud commission. All of that Mitch McConnell knows can't pass the Senate, can't pass the House of Representatives before Saturday, and so it is just an attempt to stop the $2,000 checks from becoming law. We're going to be on the floor tonight talking to our Republican colleagues. We're going to try to press them to push Mitch McConnell to bring this legislation to the floor, but it is really his decision right now as to whether American families get $600 or get $2,000.
Now, isn't there also the issue of Bernie Sanders, who was threatening a filibuster, essentially, to hold up the defense override, the attempt to override the veto of the defense bill until the stimulus gets a standalone free ride?
Well, Senator Sanders, as I understand, is trying to use every tool he has at his disposal to try to get this clean vote on the House legislation, including, I understand, delaying the vote on the veto override of the defense bill. But again, it's Donald Trump who put us in this position where we are coming up to the end of the legislative session with the defense bill, which includes a pay increase for our troops still pending. The president could have signed that bill. Instead, at the very last minute, he vetoed it, sending it back to Congress at the 0 hour. We will override that veto by the end of the session. I believe we'll do that. But I do understand that Bernie Sanders is trying to find every lever he has at his disposal to also get that vote taken on the $2,000 checks, a vote right now that Mitch McConnell and Senate Republicans refuse to grant the American public.
And your Republican colleague, Josh Hawley of Missouri, announcing today he's going to object to the Electoral College vote, the certification on January 6th. It's unlikely to change the result. That's not going to happen, but it's going to cause a delay, lengthy debate, going to both houses, a joint session. I mean, it's a complicated process that sets off.
Well, let's be clear. Josh Hawley and anyone who supports his effort are engaged in the attempted overthrow of democracy. There is no evidence that there was any fraud. Senator Hawley apparently believes that if a Democrat wins the presidential race, it must be illegitimate by definition, even absent any actual evidence of misbehavior. And, well, you're right that Senator Hawley's efforts here are not going to change the result of the election. Joe Biden is still going to be president. There won't be enough votes to overturn the Electoral College. What he is doing, and those who support him are doing, is breeding in the American public, and certainly amongst the hardcore Trump supporters, this belief that the election itself was illegitimate, and anytime a Democrat wins, it must be illegitimate. That is ultimately going to potentially end in the overthrow of democracy. At some point, there will be a successful attempt by Republicans at the state level or national level to throw out a legitimate election just because a Democrat won. We don't do this in this country, right? We put our country before our party and our personal beliefs. Senator Hawley's efforts are not going to change the result of the election, but they pose a grave threat to American democracy. Maybe not this year, but 2 years from now, 4 years from now, absolutely.
And Senator, I want to ask you about Jonathan Pollard. He's back in Israel, convicted spy. The travel ban that was part of his parole had not been renewed by the Trump administration. People are comparing this to the pardon And this is certainly a gift to Bibi Netanyahu, now facing a fourth election. He's had plenty of re-elections that were helped by gifts from President Trump, including the annexation of the Golan Heights 2 years ago. How do you see this? Is it time to let Jonathan Pollard go back to Israel, or is this giving away or letting a convicted spy who really damaged the United States go back to Israel, which arguably helped him in his spying?
Well, Jonathan Pollard is a convicted spy, and the actions that he undertook deeply hurt American national security. I don't think that this is sort of the equivalent of some of the pardons that Donald Trump issued to his friends and cronies that were, in essence, a way for the president to avoid legal liability. This is fundamentally different, and this is a very complicated case. All of that being said, Joe Biden is going to have a tough road ahead of him because we ultimately need to conduct ourselves with respect to our relations with Israel in a way that respects the U.S.-Israel relationship, but also tries to drive towards a two-state future. There is no future for Israel and the Palestinians other than one in which there are two states, one for Israel and one for the Palestinians. And Donald Trump has taken us further away from that reality than any previous president in my lifetime. And Joe Biden's going to have a lot of work ahead of him.
Senator Chris Murphy, thanks so much. Thanks for being with us, and a Happy New Year to you and your family.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.